everyone. We are en route to Rhinebeck. I'm stuck in traffic. I am driving up to Rhinebeck from Maryland. I'm somewhere in Pennsylvania right now. I will say, the leaves, I just got back from Philly last weekend, and the leaves coming back from Philly were really getting to be excellent. And I must say the leaves so far on this journey, though I will say I'm only maybe 2 hours in, have been quite lackluster. So I'm really hoping things pick up as I get deeper into Pennsylvania and then into New York. I think New York will be probably pretty good. But anyway, I feel like 50% of the reason for this trip is going to Rhinebeck. The other 50% is leaf peeping. Yeah, it's my first year going to Rhinebeck. The stars aligned so that it could happen this year, though I will say, right, like every year I'm spoiled by being 35 minutes away from Maryland sheep and wool. But I don't know, there's something to me that is going to be extra special about it being the fall time and being at a sheep and wool festival. So I'm looking forward to it. I've started noodling on what I'm looking for, because I think going in with a game plan is probably the best thing I can do for myself. I do want to get yarn for the Pines pullover. I do not remember the designer at this time, but I bought the pattern. I think it came out recently because there weren't a lot of finished projects, basically only test knits on the project page. But it has a really cool cable design on the front. So I'll be looking for I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Aran? I don't know. Aran is how I say it in my head. Weight yarn, which is bulkier than I typically work with, but should mean that it'll knit up fast. I think since there's cables, I think I want something on this side of worsted, or semi-worsted, so that I have good stitch definition. But I do love a rustic yarn, so we'll see. I think maybe something in the semi-worsted family will probably do me well. So that's the only thing I'm looking for on the yarn front. I also want to look for things for drum carding in terms of mix-ins. So sari silk is definitely up there. I want to add, I'm in the process of processing 2 fleeces still from Maryland sheep and wools from years past, and one of them's a Corriedale that's pretty much all an off-white, and then the other one is a Romney cross that is various tones of gray. I don't know if I've drum carded probably 40% of that fleece, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna do mix-ins or just leave it as it is. Although I have a lot of the mid-tone grays, so maybe I'll play around there. But I think with the Corriedale, I wanted to dye it, but I'm afraid of dyeing fleece. I was gonna dye it after I spun it, but I don't want to do mix-ins and then over dye the sari silk. That seems not ideal. So I'm gonna keep thinking about it. But long story short, I'm looking for I know sometimes people have grab bags of sari silk or other kind of things that you can add to your bats. So looking for that. And I think I'm gonna allow myself up to 3 braids of spinning fiber, of hand dyed or hand painted fiber. Yeah, I think that'll be good. And then I don't know, if I come across a tension box, that would be amazing, but it seems unlikely that I will, just because Leclerc really doesn't have that many dealers in the US, so I'm not really expecting anyone to haul sectional warping equipment with them. But I'm hoping maybe in the auction I might find a tension box. We'll see. I think I'm planning on getting to the festival relatively early tomorrow, and then spending most of I think like I'll probably do like a first loop around the first couple hours, and then the auction's at 11, so I'll spend the afternoon at the auction because I love an auction. And then yeah, I think that's really it. There aren't otherwise really any tools that I'm looking for. So that should be good. Alright, I'm out of the thick of the traffic now, so I will check in later. Bye! Hello, good morning. The morning of Rhinebeck has arrived, and I was going to do a quick fit check. So I'm wearing my Azur sweater by Tete Beche, or Orlane Souche. I'm wearing these pants that I got at a record store yesterday. And I will be masking up because I anticipate there will be a lot of people, and I'm not trying to get sick. Hello, reporting to you all mid festival. I have run out to the car to have lunch because I packed a lunch, and as much as some of the food options seem very enticing, I want to save as much money as I can to spend on things at the festival that aren't food, perhaps. I'll aspire to get an apple cider donut at some point, but it seems unlikely. I kept my lunch. I heated it up before I left this morning and then wrapped it in another sweater. I'm not here to eat my lunch on camera. I've done more or less a full walkthrough of the festival. I did not stay for the auction. I did a gander of the auction, decided there was nothing I wanted enough to sit through like a 2-hour auction, and continued on with my morning. So didn't go to the auction. I think I kind of did a lap of everything because I'd like to see everything before I decide to buy. And I did grab a couple of things. So I should have remembered where I got stuff, but I really didn't. So I got this crazy bag of, I think they were calling it party fluff. And I think this will be really great for bat mix-ins. I think there's like wool, there's definitely like glitter, there's a lot of colors and textures happening with this. I went into this festival totally blind, not knowing what vendors were going to be here. I also don't think they announced the vendor list, but I was pleasantly surprised to see woodland woodworking, and so I got some mini bats in the colorway Treebeard, which I think is very cute. It's this nice like dark green. There's some purples in here. Sorry, the sun is really doing what it does. But yeah, so that's all I've gotten so far. On my second round, I think I might stop by the Harrisville Designs stand to look at some of their yarn because I liked some of the colors that I saw. I did stop by Green Mountain Spinnery And because I also saw some yarn that I really liked for the Pines pullover, but it's just a little bit too, I don't want to say dense, but it's like a little bit, I mean, it kind of is too dense for what I'm looking for a sweater. Like, I know it's just gonna be way too hot. So I don't know, we'll see. I think I have a problem where I'm like, this happens to me at Maryland Sheep and Wool, where my eyes just glaze over all the yarn because I like feel impatient and don't want to stop and like touch and feel everything. But I think on my second loop I'm going to be more intentional about looking at yarn. I might go back to Susan's fiber shop to see if she has, I know Ashford has a jumbo lazy Kate that they have, that they pair with their e-spinner, that I saw Felicia Lowe from Sweet Georgia mention is great for plying jumbo bobbins. And so I might see if she has that. I have no idea how much it costs, but I don't know. Part of me is also like, I could just make myself a lazy Kate. So I don't know, we'll see. We'll see on the lazy Kate front. I'm not convinced one way or another yet. But yeah, I think so far successful. All right, I'm gonna eat my lunch now. Catch you later. Hello. Welcome back. I have returned from my journey to New York for New York Sheep and Wool and thought I would do a final haul because I did go back for some more things, and also to just share my closing thoughts on the experience generally and comparatively to Maryland Sheep and Wool, which is my local sheep and wool festival. And yeah, I'll just dive right in. So I would say that I spent about what I expected to, which is not bad as far as, I mean, it's not great, but I think that I did a good job making a list of things that I hoped and aspired to purchase going into this festival, and did not walk away with anything that I didn't expect to buy or that I feel like I regret buying, because I know people can get carried away at a festival where there's a lot to see and a lot of interesting things, that, and you get carried away, you're with the adrenaline of seeing a lot of things. So I would say that I did not get carried away. If anything, I bought less than I think that I had originally set out to, but I think I was intentional with all of my purchases, and everything will have a place in my life, which I feel good about. So I'll just start with what's on top, and some of the stuff you might have already seen because I would have shared it in the car. So, but I'll go into things in more detail. So the first thing I have here are some bats from Woodland Woodworking. I'm hoping the color shows up a little bit better now, but it's like this dark greeny purple. There's definitely some sari silk in here. The colorway is Treebeard, which I thought was really cute. And yeah, so these I'm really looking forward to spinning up, and probably weaving with. It looks really nice in texture. So that was the first thing. The second thing, so I had shared this, what they call party mix, from this vendor that I came across who was just doing like these mixed bags of fiber and glitter and sari silk and other mix-ins, and just making like these crazy mix-ins that I thought would be great for when I'm making my own bats with my fleeces that I'm processing. And I ended up returning to that booth because I wanted to figure out what their name was, which is Pucker Brush Farm. They do not have a website. I feel like both times I was at the booth, I heard people talking to the woman running it, and she was like, I hate technology. Yeah. So probably cannot, I guess there's a phone number on here that you could like call and maybe order. But it doesn't sound like it's like you can like go on a website and peruse her findings. So I got this party mix, and I also got a whole bag of just pure recycled sari silk, which I am looking forward to using as mix-ins when I continue processing my fleeces. So yes, so that was from Pucker Brush Farm. I think that's everything that I got that I've already shown. Some tools, random tools that I got a Lazy Kate, a jumbo Lazy Kate, because I also purchased a 4th bobbin from Hanson Craft for my mini spinner, and I learned that these bobbins do not fit on my Kromsky Lazy Kate. I can fit one bobbin. And so what I've been doing is rewinding my bobbins onto storage bobbins and then putting them on the Kromsky Lazy Kate. But those storage bobbins can only hold like 2 ounces. And I've been wanting to do a few like full braid combo spins. And so that's like, I think what I'm thinking of is doing like at least like 1 ply each of these 2 colorways that I have from Hello Yarn, which are like 4 ounces each. And so one of those singles would fit basically most of this bobbin, and I don't want to have to split the singles across like several smaller storage bobbins. So I have enough of these bobbins now to make a true 3 ply. And I now have a jumbo Lazy Kate that can hold 3 of these easily, so that I can make massive, massive skeins if I really wanted to. And so now I don't have to rewind onto storage bobbins. And I hummed and hawed about this a lot because I'm just like, well, I could just always spin enough to fit on the storage bobbins and not have to spend money on another Lazy Kate that I don't really need. But I think that in the interest of time and the interest of not wanting to do that, I thought getting a jumbo Lazy Kate was the right course of action. And it really wasn't that expensive as far as like some Lazy Kates go. So I feel good about that. And then the last thing, I told myself I would allow myself 1 sweater quantity of yarn. And that I did. So I got these skeins my intention is to use them for the Pines pullover. Don't come after me because this is not exactly the right weight for the Pines pullover. Because the Pines pullover calls for an Aran weight, and this is like, I want to say this is a heavy worsted, so I think it won't be too far off. But oh, it's so beautiful. This is from Green Mountain Spinnery. The colorway is Pine Warbler, which I thought is so cute. And the yarn is, I think it's Weekend Wool. Yes, it's their worsted weight Weekend Wool. And I think it's like my favorite grello. And I think it'll be so nice. It's like slightly heathered. I think it'll be so nice for a cabled sweater. And it looks like it will be very hard wearing. It's like definitely soft enough for me. Not necessarily for next to skin wear, because I pretty much always wear like a shirt under all of my sweaters, but it's definitely not like, I'm not feeling this and thinking like, oh my god, it's gonna be so itchy. I think it's gonna be really nice. It's gonna be really, it feels like it's gonna be really hard wearing. It definitely feels like it's on the worsted. It does seem like a semi-worsted. Not a true worsted, but definitely I think on this side of worsted versus woolen. But I think the color is amazing. Yeah, so I'm obsessed. I don't know when I'm gonna get to casting the sweater on, because I guess I thought I would show you what I've been working on over the past few weeks, because I'm very much so a one project at a time kind of girl. So, the yarn's far away. Okay, so Hanley's went to Peru a while back. I mean, he goes to Peru all the time, but he got me this Malabrigo yarn that's like really colorful and very speckled and very loud as far as yarns go. And I was like, what in tarnation? Like, what am I gonna do with this? And so I was like looking through Ravelry, like looking at like this specific colorway and projects people have used for it. And I saw someone holding it together with a strand of like red mohair, and it just like really made the yarn come together and like look cohesive. And so what I have decided to do is hold it together with a strand of black mohair, to just like tone down the colors a bit. And so I'm just making, I think this is, I mean, I know it is, this is a no frills that I'm making for Hanley's. I'm thinking now that I'm seeing on a camera, I'm trying to see. Like, so this is obviously where I changed skeins, but I don't think it looks that egregiously like a line. Well, I'm unconcerned about it. And I think he will be too. But I think the fabric looks so much nicer with that black mohair to like bring everything together. And yeah, so this is what I'm currently working on. When I finish it, then I'll probably cast on the Pines pullover. But yeah, it is really nice and soft. Obviously, like the Malabrigo is just like a single ply, extremely soft superwash yarn, which is so far from anything that I typically use. But you know, I wanted to make the most of it, and I think I really don't hate how this is turning out. So yeah, I don't feel like horrible about where I changed skeins. I think it's fine, comes with the territory. So yeah, that is the haul and my, I guess, current work in progress. So as I mentioned, this was my first year at New York Sheep and Wool, and it just like, I haven't been able to go in previous years because it just like, Juan-Lisa and I typically do a trip to upstate New York in the fall to see the foliage, but we usually go to the Finger Lakes. And so like the timing has never worked out like enough for me to go to Rhinebeck, I guess. Like in terms of like taking time off work, whatever. But this year the stars aligned and I found a great Airbnb about an hour away from the festival, sort of last minute because I think I booked it like about a month out. So I was feeling like very lucky on that front. And I was just like, okay, it looks like it's gonna happen. And I don't know, I like to go to like 2 fiber festivals a year. It feels really nice to do one like earlier in the season, such as Maryland Sheep and Wool, which happens in May, and then to do one later in the season. So I think in past years I've gone to Shenandoah Fiber Festival, which is usually in September, but I was out of town for that this year. And I think this coming weekend, which is like the 25th, 26th, is Frederick Fiber Festival, which is definitely a lot smaller than Maryland or New York or Shenandoah. It's definitely more yarn focused the one year that I went, but sometimes it's fun to see smaller local festivals and what they're up to. But anyway, I digress. So I made the drive up to New York on Friday and then headed out to the festival bright and early on Saturday. And it was, I think that my expectations were, I think that I was expecting it to be very overwhelming, very crowded. But with that being said, very enjoyable. And I would say that that was pretty much true. I think I felt really anxious about traffic because I feel like in all the Ravelry threads and like Reddit forums I was reading, they were like, traffic's a nightmare, leave early, you can get stuck on the bridge. And so I was feeling a little bit anxious about that. And like I left maybe like half an hour later than I wanted to because I wanted to get there right at opening at 9, but ended up getting there closer to 9:30, 9:45. And traffic, really not bad. Maybe part of me is like, maybe it's worse if you go earlier, if you're trying to get there before opening. I'm sure it's worse a little bit later. But I feel like when I came, it was like a sweet spot of like, of course there's slowdowns, but it really, really wasn't bad. Especially compared to like DC metro area traffic on like any given weekday. Really not bad. So that was a pleasant surprise. I think yeah, and then I got there, it was definitely crowded. Do I feel like it was any more crowded than Maryland Sheep and Wool? It's a little bit hard to say. In some ways, I feel like the expanse of space that the festival took up was more spread out than Maryland in terms of like the actual like fairgrounds. But I feel like, right, there's a lot of action concentrated in certain areas, right? There's like the section with food, there's like the first like with all the 4-H barns, and then there's like that indoor pavilion. And I feel like those individual sections felt very crowded, and maybe more crowded than I feel Maryland Sheep and Wool gets. But also maybe I'm just not remembering very well. And like also I think I have to take into account that like I've been to Maryland Sheep and Wool, you know, like 3 times now, and so I feel very familiar with the fairgrounds. I feel like I know where everything is. Whereas like with New York Sheep and Wool, I was still like getting myself oriented and like seeing everything for the first time. And so I think it was just like generally a lot to take in. Which I feel like is neither good nor bad, just an observation. Yeah. I think in terms of, I think I was surprised. I guess I don't think, but maybe I also just didn't look that hard. I don't think they like announced a full vendor list for New York Sheep and Wool. I also don't know if they do that for Maryland like before the day of, but I think I was surprised by the overlap of vendors. To me, it kind of felt like close to like a 70 or 75% overlap. It was like a high, like I feel like a majority of vendors I had seen before at Maryland Sheep and Wool. But I do feel like New York had more vendors. I don't know if that's true, but I just felt like, I feel like with Maryland, you have your 4-H barns, and then you have the main pavilion, and then you also have tents and stuff outside. I think at New York Sheep and Wool, it felt like there were more 4-H barns that were larger, because I think a lot of them basically had 2 rows of, or like, I guess let's call them hallways of vendors, where you like went down one hallway that would have vendors on both sides, and then you would loop around, and then there would be also vendors on both sides. I do believe, but also maybe I'm misremembering. I just felt like New York had more vendors in some ways than Maryland. But I do think something that Maryland does a little bit better is, well, I can't, maybe not better is the right word, but different and or more robust, is the used equipment auction. I did a loop through the used equipment auction at New York Sheep and Wool because I was looking for sectional warping equipment, which there was like an older tension box there and some spool racks, but I figured I didn't really want to sit through how long that auction was going to be for those items, because usually the auctions, at least the ones I've been to at Maryland, have like gone way past like their allotted time frame. And I was like, I don't really want to spend 2 hours sitting at an auction for items that I like may or may not buy depending on their price. So I did a stroll through. It's definitely a smaller selection of used equipment, and of course like that depends on like how many people are bringing items, and so you can't blame that on the festival. But I looked through, determined maybe not for me this year, and walked out. And then I also, not that I tell myself every year that like I'm never buying a fleece again, but I always like to look at the fleeces, and I did feel like the number of fleeces and the fleece selection in New York was definitely smaller than Maryland. But at the same time, I also stopped by the barn a little bit later in the day, probably closer to like 1 or 2 o'clock. So perhaps all of the great fleeces had already been snagged. But I just also know like Maryland has so many fleeces to choose from. I did see a beautiful, like almost like taupe, like a dark taupey gray merino fleece that like I guess literally stopped me in my tracks. It was so beautiful, so expensive, and I also like have never worked with a fine fleece. I've always mostly worked with medium wools with the 2 fleeces, and so I like really did not feel like ready to take the plunge in that moment, because I also like would have needed to get more power scour and like all of that stuff. I was just like not taking on another fleece at this time. But now I know, if in a hypothetical world in which I am once again open to buying fleeces, I now know what I would be looking for in my next fleece, because the color was amazing and so unique. But anyway, I also digress. So I feel like the biggest difference is that I think have me leaning towards, not that they're a competition by any means, towards Maryland Sheep and Wool is the larger, more robust used equipment auction and the larger fleece selection, which feels like makes no sense because I'm not currently in the market for a fleece, and there isn't a ton of equipment that I'm currently looking to buy. But to me, like those are like my highlights when I'm like going to a sheep and wool festival. Yeah, so my takeaway is that I'm really glad that I went this year, and I'm glad that it worked out that I did. I don't necessarily feel that this is something that I would like strive to return to every year, especially like if I'm still in close proximity to Maryland Sheep and Wool. But I think it definitely is worth going at the very least to see the fall foliage. It was amazing, and I'm very much so a leaf peeper, and yeah, that just made the experience really special, is being able to be at a fiber festival at the coziest time of year. Yeah, and I think I'm not lamenting this, but I did not get any food while I was at the festival. I had packed a lunch because I didn't want to wait in the food lines, because I would say like after 10:30 a.m. the lines just got like really outrageously long, and to me just like didn't feel like a good use of my time or energy to wait. And I like packed a lunch and everything. But I do think in future years, now that I know that like I don't need to be in a hurry necessarily to get or find what I want, I would maybe consider, especially if I'm getting there early, like just like getting an early lunch, or like an early apple cider donut. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about that. I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed the experience, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.